Earnings per share was up and beating expectations over 20%. They attributed a lot of their revenue and earnings beat to expansion into rural markets in China. We were just talking about Alibaba on the last episode of Winner Take All and how they have over 2x the amount of GMV than Amazon does. They have over $800 billion in GMV than Amazon does. Amazon has about $277 billion in GMV. But Alibaba, from a revenue standpoint, has actually much less revenue than Amazon. And that had to do with their advertising model and all these things. So Alibaba announced revenue of $16.74 billion for the quarter. This is their first quarter of their, I think, maybe fiscal 2020 year. And that was an increase of 42% year over year, beating expectations by a good margin on that, as well as their earnings per share was up and beating expectations over 20%. And so this was what I was predicting was that Alibaba would beat. And the way that I think that they were able to beat was just if you look at that differential, 16.74 quarterly revenue, right? So they're doing less than $70 billion in revenue overall, but they have over $800 billion in throughput. And so I think they attributed a lot of their revenue and earnings beat to expansion into rural markets in China. Pinduoduo, PDD, also in Platt. Baba, Alibaba, and PDD are both in Platt. PDD is the number 3 e-commerce player in China, but they do these group buying, group purchasing, right? So if you're kind of a small village in rural China, you all pool together your purchases and do one big purchase. And so that's been hugely popular in many rural parts of China. Alibaba has been trying to bring that group buying, group purchasing dynamic to their product offering and to their flow in order to expand into rural China. So they attributed a lot of this growth to expansion in rural China. I think the other part of this is that they have a lot of the ability to just take more revenue as a relation to the $800+ billion in GMV that they're doing. If last year's financials, they were doing maybe around $56 billion in revenue compared to over $800 billion in GMV. That's a pretty big differential, especially when you look at Amazon's model where they're doing $277 billion in GMV and about $230 billion in revenue. So it's a much smaller gap there. Both Alibaba and Amazon have strong cloud businesses as well. Thanks for watching our latest clip. If you enjoy the content we're creating on Winner Take All, please feel free to leave us a comment, subscribe, and definitely join us on our next live stream.